Good morning and welcome. Thank you for joining us this morning. I'm Ted Leidy, the Vice President of Government Affairs for the Colorado Association of Realtors. Here with me today is my colleague Liz Peets, our Government Affairs Manager. Together we want to give you a review of the 2017 legislative session and of course the key issues that realtors faced down at the legislature. I think we'll start off with construction litigation reform, otherwise known as construction defects reform. Those of you that follow public policy know that we've been working on this issue for the better part of 4 years, maybe even longer. Really the last 3 years with our partners, our coalition partners within the Homeownership Opportunity Alliance, or the HOA. This year we're pleased to announce that we found a compromise. It is what it is, a compromise. It's not everything that we wanted, not everything that we think would be the best solution, but it is a great step in the right direction. What it will do is provide informed consent. And what that means basically to you is that if you're a homeowner or a unit owner in a condominium association and there's a construction defect pending lawsuit, or there's construction defects that have been found, before you enter into litigation, now you as the unit owner will be asked, you'll be informed and disclosed of the ramifications of what litigation means to your property, possibly the difficulty in refinancing the property or selling it to someone that needs financing. And then after you're disclosed of those ramifications, you'll be asked to provide your consent or your vote. And a simple majority vote would mean that 51% vote would mean you were okay to go to litigation. The hope is obviously that we'll find some other means to resolve that dispute. And one of the good things that the bill does is it requires the builders to be able to go in there and talk to the HOA, their clients, their customers, the HOA unit owners, and have that initial discussion before even the voting period begins, so that hopefully we can find some resolution outside of litigation. As we know, the ultimate goal in this has always been to reduce the magnitude and the frequency of these construction defect claims. That will then help insurance rates out, which are one of the key problems with being able to develop those more attainable products, because the margins just aren't there. And that's priced out seniors, millennials, the first-time home buyers, single parent families, and the like. Anything you want to add on construction litigation reform?
No, I think just a great success, and thanks to all of our members for participating in our engagement at the Capitol.
No doubt. I can't thank you guys enough. As Liz just said, you guys were a big reason in helping us find a compromise and really kind of putting the pressure on the legislature to seek a compromise. We had many calls for actions over the last few years. Again, one again this year as well, and those really helped us, speak with one voice, and a very loud, very broad voice. And I think because of that, we were able to be successful this year. Again, it is a compromise bill. We're hopeful that it will lead to more attainably priced condominiums being developed. It will take some time for us to realize, for the development community to understand a little bit more what this means, and then of course for insurance companies to react to what's going on in the marketplace. We're hoping it's all positive, and in the future we can see more and more condominiums developed. After construction litigation reform, I think the second most important thing, but probably the most important thing actually for you as a licensee, our members, was the Real Estate Sunset Review Bill, Senate Bill 215. Every 10 years, as you guys know, the Division of Real Estate does a very deliberative analysis and review of how you guys are regulated down at the Capitol. They go through, starting in January and go all the way through October, talk to the stakeholders, all the different professions within the industry, obviously talk to realtors, find out what's right, what's wrong, what's working, what's not, and that then becomes a bill. This year, we had a chairman's advisory group, or actually, I guess last year we had a chairman's advisory group. Immediate past chair Alan Lovett called one together. It comprised a number of our members from across the state, and they put forth their own recommendations to DORA and said, here's how we think we should be regulated, here's what's not working, here's what we could be doing better. We were successful in getting some of those recommendations woven into the final recommendations from the Department of Regulatory Agencies, or DORA, and then more so, we were able to then find a good bill sponsor, Senator Kevin Priola, and work with him and the Senate Business Committee to weed out some of those recommendations that we disagreed with. The first recommendation, recommendation 9, that we asked to be removed, dealt with the annual contract update course, or the ACU. DORA, as you guys know, are responsible for the content of that course. What the recommendation said was, well, DORA is no longer going to be involved. We're going to farm out the creation of these courses to the instructors out in the marketplace and allow them to come up with their own content, their own curriculum. We said no. We talked to some of the education providers, also some that are our members, and we said no, it's very vital for DORA to continue to have that role and create the ACU, and then allow their instructors to go out into the marketplace and teach and instruct the annual contract update course. So thankfully they agreed with us, the committee did, and they struck that from what would become the introduced bill. The other big issue was recommendation 2, which deals with standard forms. And recommendation 2 basically said that we think attorneys should be more involved in the transaction, at least as far as standard forms are concerned. And they basically said you need to now have, or we recommend that you should have an attorney-client relationship if you want to do any of these standard forms. So any forms that aren't promulgated by the Real Estate Commission. We said, wait, well, hold on a minute. We've got a Supreme Court decision, Conway-Bogue, since 1956, that basically gives us the opportunity, the ability, really, to produce those forms, not really produce them, but to fill them out, utilize those forms without an attorney. Conway-Bogue said that you could practice, real estate. You could work on those contracts and not have to be an attorney, as some other states have to have. So we worked and really weeded out those 2 initially, and those were never then in the introduced version of the bill. What we then got was a pretty clean bill, and then we next worked on a few other amendments with other stakeholders as well. One of those was saying that, well, we need to make sure that Colorado law conforms with RESPA. We know that CFPB, now the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, is very keen on regulating and even more disciplining people that are bound by RESPA. So what we wanted to do is say, let's make sure that the Colorado law is compliant with RESPA. That was all well and good, but then when we saw the bill language, what it did was completely strike any sort of those sections of law that dealt with, say, referral fees. Yeah. Something that then we did a little bit of research on and realized, well, actually, we put that language in as an association back 10, 15 years ago, and that was to protect you guys from undue referral fees or procuring cause issues, where someone may call and say, hey, you owe me a referral fee, and it put in these protections. So what we had to go back in and do is basically retain those any language regarding referral fees, but then conform everything else to RESPA. Lastly, then, what we did a few other things, but the other big thing that we did is revisiting recommendation 2 on standard forms. We then worked with the Real Estate Section Council of the Bar Association once the bill got into the House, and we said, and we worked with our Legislative Policy Committee, and we said, well, we continue to have sort of this debate, whether it's within the Real Estate Commission or just within the industry, about the use of standard forms and the presence or use of attorneys when standard forms are being used. Why don't we just create a definition for standard forms? Because that's been one of the problems, is there's been no statutory definition of standard forms, and we felt that if we at least defined it, the legislature defines in statute what a standard form is, that kind of puts to bed some of the other conversations that we've had about the use of attorneys and what a standard form means. So we believe that this new, very expansive definition of what a standard form is will actually provide some guidance to you, the realtors, to all practitioners, about what sorts of standard forms they can and can't use, and don't get into hot water with the commission down the line because they used an inappropriate standard form. We could go on and on about the sunset review. Know this, one of the other things that we did was change, and not we, but working with the Division of Real Estate, is we changed your anniversary dates to a calendar year. So once you renew next time, you won't just be renewing, you'll renew on your anniversary date, but then it becomes a calendar year. So you won't have to think anymore, when was I actually licensed, when do I need to make sure that I have my license renewed and all my continuing education credit up to snuff. That will be changed. It's something that they wanted at the division. From an administrative standpoint, it's something that we heard from you guys over and over that you wanted changed as well. So we're happy that that happened as well. Many other things happened. Know this, that you'll continue to be regulated for the next 10 years. We're glad that you will be. The last thing that I'll touch on is the managing broker issue. And the managing broker issue is basically, and this came out of our chairman's advisory group, we said, you know, there's a lot of incompetency problems, there's a lot of supervision problems that if you go and watch the commission and the disciplinary proceedings, there's a lot of that going on. What we said is maybe what we need to do is increase the criteria to become a managing broker, to be responsible for other licensees. So we had put in sort of a mix of years and experience, pegging it to the number of transactions. What they decided to do at the legislature was leave it to the rulemaking process at the commission. It's something that we actually got on board with and said, you know what, that's actually the right body. It gives them the flexibility to change that rule if they think they need to because of market changes or whatever, and then we don't have to go back to the legislature anytime we think something around the qualifications for managing brokers needs to happen. Anything you want to add?
No, I think that covers all the high points. We just had great bill sponsors, Senator Kevin Priola and Representative Matt Gray, who were really willing to work with us, thanks to all of your engagement as members, so we appreciate that.
Yeah, both bill sponsors were excellent. We were happy to work with them. Senator Priola has an understanding. He does some real estate on the side, so it was great to have two guys that understood the industry somewhat and obviously reached out to us and listened to us when we told them what some of the problems were, what some of the fixes needed to be. So that's it on the Sunset Review. Again, you know, if you ever have any questions, govaffairs@coloradorealtors.com, or call Liz, call myself, call Madeline, and we're happy to answer any questions that you have. There's a lot that we're going to leave out in the interest of time, but we were happy with the final result on Senate Bill 215, the Sunset Review. I want to change pace a little bit and talk about what's become another perennial issue down here as far as real estate's concerned, but really as far as the state has been concerned, and that's marijuana and marijuana's impact on real estate. What did we do this year?
Well, always a perennial topic for our members in terms of interest. We worked this year on House Bill 1220, which limits the number of marijuana plant counts that can be grown in your residence. As you can imagine, Colorado has legalized, because our plant count limit was 99 plants that you could actually have in your house, it's created a lot of issues for residential real estate. I mean, between health and safety concerns, extensive odors, increase in human and automobile traffic, mold, dangerous property modifications such as electricity grids.
And we even heard that the cartels are moving into Colorado, right?
Which this bill is really meant to address that. We don't want Colorado to be this outlier in the country. And it also potentially stigmatizes nearby property that is not home growing. So we worked this year with the governor's office and a variety of other stakeholders to make some changes in what you can home grow in your residence. For anyone who's tracking the rest of where Colorado stands in the rest of the country, among the 28 states that have already legalized marijuana for either recreational or medicinal use, 12 of those states ban home cultivation completely. And another 12, I believe it is, limit that plant count to 16. So our 99 plant count was way out of scale in terms of the rest of the country. Right. So this bill also helped Colorado rein it in and become less of an outlier.
Sure. And then one of the key things of the bill is the local control component. Talk to us a little bit about that.
So yeah, exactly. Let's talk about what the bill does. So first of all, there's local control that is maintained. So if there is a jurisdiction that currently has a plant count limit, then that rule is going to stand. It'll be the ruling authority. This bill will actually address those jurisdictions that don't have a local
Right.
plant count limit, and it will take that limit to a limit statewide of 12 plants. Now, there is a little bit of a caveat to that as well. If a patient or a medical caregiver would like to register with the state and then follow the local rules according to disclosure, then they can have up to 24 plants. But they do have to make that extra step of
Right.
registering with the state.
Okay, with the Department of Public Health, right? Okay.
Yes. And, you know, we just see this as an issue that has been really important to us for real estate because so many homeowners, it's the biggest financial investment they make is their home. And we thought that getting involved in this discussion of marijuana helps property owners protect their ability to enjoy their home.
Right, and I think we looked at it also, right, these are sort of commercial production facilities. When you get to
Exactly.
a certain extent, well past 12, we saw some instances where there was hundreds of plants being grown in basements or complete houses gutted to maximize the space for growing marijuana, and it was hard for law enforcement to understand, well, is this legal grow operation, is this an illegal grow operation? We're in a residential neighborhood. But ultimately, again, these are more manufacturing, commercial, industrial type uses in a residential property. And we felt, you know, we have zoning for a reason, and we understand that there are some out there that need to self-medicate, if you will, and grow their own medicine. But if they want to do it and they need more than 12 plants or whatever your local ordinance is, or maybe even up to 24 plants, you need to find someone or find a space in a commercially zoned or industrial zoned area, and then continue your production there. But it's not supposed, we're not supposed to have our commercial enterprises in our residential neighborhoods. And, you know, kudos to the governor's office and to all the other stakeholders that was alluded to. I think we did a good job for Colorado and obviously for residential real estate and property owners across the state to limit to 12 plants. And as you said, 28 other states do something and have, or 8 other states that do have legalization do something more than what we were doing
Right.
prior to this, and we're happy the governor's going to sign it next week.
Yes,
So,
next Thursday.
yeah. Anything else on marijuana, or at least
At
plant
least
counts?
for now,
Right,
I'm
I'm
gonna
sure.
leave that controversial
Right.
subject. But
One of the
let's
key-
go from marijuana to another regulatory issue that was new to us this year, and that's House Bill 1358.
Right, so 1358, what we're calling the Commission Transparency Bill, I guess that's sort of what the short title was of the bill as well, what the proponents and the bill sponsor were calling it. What it did was, what it would have done was require a real estate a realtor in a real estate transaction to disclose their commission rate. And not just the commission rate to themselves, but also the one that they're offering to the buyer. You may say, well, I already do that when I put it on the MLS. Well, this was going to go a big step further and say anytime you list a property and then market that property, any sort of marketing materials that you use, you're going to have to put what your commission rate is, what the commission rate of what you're offering, basically the buyer's agent has a commission rate as well. So the total compensation within that real estate transaction. What we just said is, well, hold on a minute. You know, we already disclosed that type of information. That information is disclosed to the consumers that matter, and those are the parties to the transaction. They already know. The buyer and the seller absolutely understand what the compensation will be for their agents. This was actually brought by one of our, favorite flat fee broker companies in the marketplace, and they basically wanted to codify their business practice, their marketing practices into law and require everybody else in the industry to basically abide by their business plan, their marketing plan. As you guys know in the industry, your compensation that you earn is one very much voluntary. It does mostly, it depends on the type of property that you're transacting, but it varies greatly. Just depends on the type of property. But again, coming back to the point that it's it's voluntary. We don't have a set commission rate. There is sort of a traditional rate within the marketplace, but that's not the same property to property type. And that's one of the arguments we made down at the legislature.
Yeah,
We
what
don't-
was the reaction in the committee when this bill came?
Well, that was great. So we got to committee hearing and the bill died 11-2. Just the bill sponsor and one other member voted for the bill. We had bipartisan support and bipartisan questioning of the need for the legislature to get involved. And they basically said that we don't think the legislature has any role in determining the difference between flat fee brokers and traditional full service brokerages and their practices, and that it's not our job to get involved. The marketplace should be the one that dictates, which business model, if you will, wins out in the end. Do the people want to use a flat fee broker or the traditional full service brokerage? It was great. It was another thing that as Liz said, we didn't know it was coming. We'd heard rumblings about it. Sort of the front end of the legislature. It didn't really come into play until late April. We rushed back from our spring meetings and had a committee hearing, and 11-2 vote. We were very happy that the committee agreed with us that this was a very unnecessary bill. It's probably something that we'll see in the future again. I don't know how they'll change their tact, but I'm sure that it won't be the end of this type of a bill. Transitioning back a little bit now to dock fees and transfer taxes. We're talking about a lot of perennial issues this year. I think only two of them have not been. But dock fees and transfer taxes. I've been here 9 years. I think every year's had one or the other. This one had both. This session had both.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about both the dock fee bill and the transfer tax bill.
Yeah, as you guys all know, this is a common battle for us, and I think a more persistent battle recently with the focus on affordable housing down at the Capitol that will continue to be a focus in the next couple of years. We saw both a transfer tax and a couple of dock fee bills. The Senate Concurrent Resolution 2 was our transfer tax, which does what we normally see when we see this bill at the legislature. It changed the Constitution of removing the prohibition against transfer taxes in Tabor. And then it established a transfer tax of 0.1% on real property when that title is transferred to a new owner. Conversely, House Bill 1309 was one of our dock fee bills, and that bill would have doubled the existing documentary fee on the recording of real estate deeds and instruments, and then also it allocated half of the money to the county treasurer and then half of the money to the Colorado Housing and Finance Authority to create a housing investment fund, and that fund would be used to support new and existing affordable housing programs.
So some people ask, do realtors hate affordable housing? What have we done in the
No.
past around affordable housing?
Yeah, absolutely. We are a strong advocate of affordable housing, and as many of you might know, because we've been talking about it, but never hurts for us to remind you what we've been doing. We worked on the creation and the extension of the low-income housing tax credit program. We've also worked to use the unclaimed property trust fund to support programs that provide assistance with rental housing, both construction and rehabilitation of rental income housing. And last year, we had a really highly successful first-time homebuyer savings account program that was passed through the legislature with bipartisan support.
Right.
And not to say the least, through our foundation, Carhoff, now CRF, we have put over $7 million towards supporting safe, decent, and affordable housing for Colorado. So I don't think that you can say that Carr is not an affordable housing advocate.
Right.
I think we just disagree with the process of how you go about creating affordable housing. It's really one of our bedrock principles that you can't make housing more affordable by making it more expensive.
Right.
So we just see SCR2 and House Bill 1309, transfer taxes and dock fees, is really the wrong way to go about finding that solution.
Outside of that principle that you mentioned, not making housing more affordable but making it more expensive, what types of revenue streams? I mean, talk about do these comprise reliable funding sources for affordable housing?
Yeah, that's really one of the main drawbacks to these types of laws. Because the housing industry and these transfer taxes, dock fees are so tied to the strength of the economy, it varies so much that it makes that funding source not reliable. It's also not broad-based, right? It's not the sales tax that would be against a lot of different percentage of the population. This really only covers.
Much smaller tax base, very volatile, subject to market forces. Yeah.
Exactly. Plus, it also is regressive. It
Right.
hurts those families that can least afford it because it encourages them to be, well, forces them to pay a larger percentage of their income to come up with that money that would otherwise go towards a down payment, which is the biggest barrier for getting into home ownership.
Great, thank you. So we hope you've enjoyed this last 20-some minutes. This is just a small review of what we did, the bigger issues that we fought for and fought against, that we spent a lot of time or on during this past legislative session. I think there were 600 and some bills, all told, that were introduced at the legislature this year. We reviewed each one of them, but then we took positions on obviously a much smaller subset.
Right. Although I would say our bill sheet was very large this year.
We did have a very, very big bill sheet. We took on a lot of issues. It was probably my busiest session in the last 9 years working for you guys, and a lot of really busy work early on. But we did get quite a bit accomplished. There were a few things that we wished were accomplished and weren't, that we won't touch on today, but that will probably be part of our legislative agenda moving forward in 2018. Thank you for joining us. We hope you have a great day. Should you have any questions about anything we discussed today, or just anything at all about government affairs or public policy, GovAffairs, GOV affairs at coloradorealtors.com, or pick up the phone and give us a call. We hope you enjoy the rest of your day.